Life stories. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to begin today's story. What would you do if the people you loved the most betrayed you in the worst possible way? Madison Carter had always been the responsible daughter, supporting her family financially and hoping for their love in return. But when she was deliberately excluded from a family vacation she helped pay for, she uncovered a shocking truth: she was nothing more than their personal bank account. What followed was a journey of heartbreak, self-discovery, and ultimate freedom. Stay with us as we dive into Madison's powerful story of breaking free from manipulation. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to follow more life stories. Madison Carter had always considered herself a dutiful daughter. Growing up in a small town in Illinois, she had learned the value of hard work, perseverance, and family loyalty. Those values had carried her far, landing her a prestigious job as a marketing executive in New York, where she poured every ounce of her energy into building a career she could be proud of. But no matter how successful she became, she never forgot where she came from. She was the kind of person who never hesitated to help her family, especially when her parents started struggling financially after her father's early retirement. 4 months. She had been looking forward to this trip to Maui, a rare chance to step away from the chaos of work, to breathe, to exist outside the demands of deadlines and meetings. More importantly, it was an opportunity to reconnect with her family. She had been sending them money regularly, covering bills and medical expenses. And when they planned this vacation, she had even transferred extra funds to make sure they could all enjoy it without worry. She pictured the sunlit beaches, the slow, golden evenings, and for once, she imagined feeling like a daughter instead of just a provider. That illusion shattered the moment her mother's voice rang through the phone. Sweet and calm, laced with false innocence. "We're in Honolulu. Why didn't you come to the airport yesterday, sweetie?" The words struck Madison like a physical blow. She stood in the middle of Dallas International Airport, her suitcase packed neatly beside her, her boarding pass clutched in her trembling hand. Around her, travelers bustled, the energy of excitement and movement filling the air. But for her, the world had suddenly stilled. A sharp chill spread through her chest as the truth sank in. "You told me the flight was today," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have the messages to prove it." There was a slight pause, just long enough for Madison to recognize the lie before it even arrived. "Oh, sweetheart. There must have been some confusion," her mother said lightly. "Your sister made it just fine. We're all settled in at the resort now." Of course. Lauren had made it. Lauren. The golden child. The one who had always been their priority. Madison should have seen it coming. The warning signs had been there. The way her parents had insisted on handling the flight arrangements themselves, claiming it would be easier that way. The way they had reassured her, over and over again, not to worry about a thing. Her hands clenched into fists, the initial shock burning away into something sharper. "This wasn't a mistake," she said, her voice steadier now. "You deliberately gave me the wrong date. You never wanted me on this trip, did you?" Silence stretched on the other end of the line. Then her mother's voice, dismissive. "Now, Madison, don't be dramatic. These things happen. But they didn't just happen. Not to other people. Not like this." Families didn't just forget to include their own daughter on a trip she had helped pay for. This wasn't an accident. This was exclusion by design. Madison ended the call, her heart pounding in her ears, her fingers still shaking as she stared at the boarding pass in her hand. Around her, families laughed and embraced. Children tugged at their parents' hands. Couples whispered about their adventures to come. And there she was, alone, betrayed by the very people who should have loved her the most. She had spent years sacrificing for them, supporting them, sending them money month after month while they reassured her that they appreciated her generosity. She had given up her own dreams of buying a home, of taking vacations of her own, all so they could live comfortably. And yet, when the time came for a simple act of inclusion, They had chosen to leave her behind. A single tear slid down her cheek. But she quickly wiped it away. Sadness, she realized, wasn't the dominant emotion anymore. It was something else. A deep, burning anger. Not just for the missed vacation, but for every moment in her life when she had been pushed aside, overlooked, taken for granted. And standing there in the airport, her suitcase at her feet and her world tilting on its axis, she made a decision that would change everything. The drive back from the airport was a blur. The city lights passing in streaks of color as Madison gripped the steering wheel. Her thoughts a tangled mess of anger, hurt, and disbelief. The betrayal sat heavy in her chest. But more than that, it lit a fire inside her. This wasn't just about a missed flight. It was about everything. The years of being sidelined. The countless times she had put her family's needs before her own. The feeling of always being useful but never truly wanted. By the time she reached her apartment, she knew she couldn't just let this go. She needed answers. And she needed to see things clearly, without the guilt and blind devotion that had always clouded her judgment. Sitting at her kitchen table, she pulled out her phone and scrolled through her banking app. Her fingers moved automatically, navigating through her statements. And what she saw made her breath hitch. Thousands of dollars in transfers. Month after month. Mortgage payments. Utility bills. Medical expenses. All paid for by her. Last year alone, she had sent them over $30,000, money she had once planned to use for a down payment on a home. And then there were the extra payments. The ones she had sent to help with this very vacation. Her stomach twisted as she switched to Lauren's Instagram. Her pulse quickening as she clicked on the latest story. A sunny beach. Cocktails in hand. A caption that read, "Family vacation begins. Missing you. Sis. Wish you could have made it." A sharp laugh escaped her lips. Humorless and bitter. They had planned this. Not only had they knowingly excluded her, but they had taken her money, spent it on themselves, and then acted like this was some kind of innocent misunderstanding. As she continued scrolling, something else caught her eye. A photo of Lauren at the airport. The date on the post was clear. Her family had flown out a full day before they had told Madison the flight was scheduled. Her fingers clenched around her phone. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was calculated. Her father's name popped up on her screen just then. The phone vibrating in her hand. Madison stared at it, her jaw tightening before she answered. "Jocelyn," he began, his voice stern, like he was talking to a child who had misbehaved. "Your mother is very upset by your attitude. We made an honest mistake with the dates. And you're turning this into a drama. You're a grown woman. You should understand that these things happen." A slow exhale. A pause. And then, Madison laughed. Low and cold. "An honest mistake," she repeated. "Then why did Lauren know the right date? Why did you insist on booking everything yourselves? Why have you been lying to me for weeks?" "Now listen here," he started. But she cut him off. "No, Dad. You listen," she said. Her voice sharp. Steady. "Last week, I sent you $3,000 for this trip. Was that a mistake too? Or did you take my money knowing you'd leave me behind?" The silence that followed was deafening. And in that silence, Madison finally heard the truth that had been right in front of her all along. Her father sighed, his tone softening. "You know we're on a fixed income. We needed that money for the trip. You're doing so well in your career. You understand about making sacrifices for family, don't you?" Her hands were shaking, but not with sadness this time. "Sacrifices," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been making sacrifices for years. I gave up my savings, my dreams of buying a house, everything to support you and Mom. And this is how you repay me? Don't be selfish," he snapped. "Your sister needed this vacation. She's been under so much stress with her acting career." Madison's stomach turned. "Her acting career?" she asked, voice rising. You mean the hobby you've been funding with my money? While I work 60-hour weeks to support all of you. That's enough, he barked. I won't stand for this disrespect. You've changed. Madison. Money has made you cruel. For the first time in her life. She agreed with him. She had changed. And in that moment, something inside her shifted. The hurt was still there, but now it was hardening into something else. Resolve. You're right about one thing, Dad, she said. Her voice quiet but firm. I have changed. And things are about to change even more. She ended the call, opened her banking app and began typing. It was time to close the Bank of Madison permanently. The moment Madison pressed the button to close the joint account, an unexpected sense of relief washed over her. It was as if she had been holding her breath for years, waiting for permission to finally put herself first. For so long, she had believed that love meant sacrifice, that being a good daughter meant giving without limits. But standing there in her quiet apartment, away from the noise of their demands and expectations, she realized something profound: love should never come at the cost of self-respect. She spent the next few hours documenting everything. Screenshots of text messages, bank transfers, a detailed spreadsheet of every dollar she had given them over the years. The total made her sick. $47,800. That was what their love had cost her. Her phone buzzed again. A new message from her mother. I can't sleep knowing you're upset with us. This is tearing our family apart. How could you be so heartless? Madison stared at the words. But they no longer had the power to move her. The guilt that once controlled her, that kept her tethered to their needs, was slipping away. She didn't reply. Then Lauren's message came in. Oh my God. You're being so dramatic. It was just a miscommunication. Mom's been crying every day because of you. A miscommunication. That was what they were calling it now. But it was her father's message that revealed their true colors. We raised you better than this. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Your mother needs her medication refilled this week. Don't you dare abandon your responsibilities to this family. Responsibilities. That word struck her like a slap. As if she owed them something. As if it was her duty to keep them afloat while they continued to use and manipulate her. Madison inhaled sharply and exhaled slowly. Enough. She sat at her desk and drafted an email. Dear Mom, Dad, and Lauren. I've done a lot of thinking since yesterday. The Hawaii incident wasn't a miscommunication, it was a deliberate choice to exclude me while still taking my money. This pattern of behavior ends now. Effective immediately. I am cutting off all financial support. The money I provided was a choice, not an obligation. You will need to find another way to cover your expenses. Do not contact me about money again. I need time and space to reevaluate our relationship. Thanks. Madison. She hit send. And then, she blocked their numbers. The messages kept coming for hours, growing more frantic, more desperate. Her mother's voicemails were full of sobbing pleas. Lauren's texts turned from anger to guilt, then back to anger. Her father's threats escalated. You think you can just walk away from your family? There will be consequences. Madison. She didn't respond. That night, for the first time in years, she slept peacefully. The weight of obligation had lifted. And as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she realized something. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't heartless. She was free. 3 months later, Madison stood barefoot on the golden sands of Maui, the ocean breeze tugging gently at her hair. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in breathtaking hues of orange, pink, and gold. It was the kind of beauty she had once dreamed of sharing with her family. But now, standing here alone, she realized something important: she didn't need them to feel whole. The last few months had been a whirlwind of change. Without her financial support, her parents had been forced to downsize, selling their house and moving into a small apartment. The repayment agreement was working, slowly but surely. Every month, a check arrived from them. Not because they wanted to make amends, but because they had no other choice. Madison didn't feel triumphant about it. There was no real satisfaction in seeing them struggle. But there was justice. Lauren had reached out again. This time with a different tone. I had no idea what they were doing to you. I'm so sorry. Madison wasn't sure if forgiveness was possible, but she was open to rebuilding something. On her terms. She took a deep breath of salty air, feeling lighter than she had in years. For so long, she had been trapped in the cycle of guilt, of obligation, of putting everyone else first. But now, she was choosing herself. As she watched the waves roll in, a small smile played at her lips. This was her moment, her life. And for the first time, she was truly free. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful life stories.